What's up, guys? I want to start off today's video a little bit differently because I want to start it off with a question. And that question is, who do you dress well for? Now, you may think that that's kind of a silly and a rhetorical question, but I genuinely would like to know that, so leave me a comment down below with just kind of your initial impression. But I want to talk about this idea of who we dress well for. Now, this is kind of in response to my last video, which if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out here. It's about the idea of playing dress up, or how so many guys, when they start their style journey, they just decide that I'm going to wear some vintage suiting and dress up like I'm living in the 40s or the 50s, and that means that I'm well dressed, and I don't believe that that does. And the main rebuttal that I planned on hearing, and I actually did hear quite a bit, both in the comments and in other forums and other places, was this idea of, yeah, but what if I like it? I don't dress well for anybody else, I dress well for me. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also disagree with that to a certain extent because there is nobody who dresses the way that they do entirely for themselves. And I think that we can conflate this idea of who we dress well for or why we do it or any of number of things. And oftentimes it can even go the other direction where we feel like we don't derive any personal benefit from dressing better. We can just improve our relationships with other people. And neither one of those extremes is actually true. We can both benefit personally and benefit in our relationships with other people. Now, this is one of the things that I teach the guys about in the Odysseus undertaking, and it's the idea that there are three elements of presence. And you have your internal presence, which is how you view yourself, how you view your own morals or your integrity in your relationship with the world. You have your external presence, which is everything that you project out to the world, things that people can get without having to converse with you or without having to actually interact with you. So that's definitely your style. But it's your posture, it's your body language, it's your scent, it is the way that you speak and your accent and all of those things. And then the third one is your interpersonal presence, which is all tied into how you actually relate and interrelate with other people. Now, dressing well, contrary to popular belief, is not only on number two. It is not just external presence. It actually works with your internal presence as well. And I'm going to tie that into this idea that we don't just dress for ourselves, nor do we just dress well for other people. Now, my buddy Ryan, again, if you're not following his channel, go check out his channel. He's the one who turned me on to this idea of enclothed cognition, which is basically when we put on certain clothes, we tend to act or perceive ourselves in a certain way. And I've read studies on this and I've seen different things on this. I've even referenced this in videos before where there was an experiment where they took two groups of people and put them in a room, and they gave one group of people civilian clothes and they gave another group of people military clothes. And just the clothing was the only difference, and based on what they were wearing, that affected the way that they acted. Another really good example of this is what happens to nurses or other medical personnel when they actually put on a white coat, a white lab coat, because not only do other people perceive them as having more authority and start to treat them differently, but they also perceive themselves and start to feel differently about themselves. They have this enclothed cognition, and so they start to act with more authority, and they stand straighter, and they speak more directly, and they just have more dominance than they would otherwise. And so this idea of putting on certain clothes can absolutely affect how you view yourself. It can absolutely impact your internal presence. And of course, it can impact your external presence. But here's the thing about this. It does not influence your internal presence without there being an underlying meaning from somebody else. You cannot personally dress some way without it being a cue that you have taken from somebody else. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to this white lab coat example. The whole reason that people start to experience a feeling of more confidence and more authority when they put on a white lab coat is because from the societal perspective, a white lab coat means that you're a doctor, it means you're high status, it means that you're an authority figure when it comes to medical personnel. Now, if you were to take that same thing and go up to, I don't know, the Eskimos in Alaska or down to the middle of the bushes somewhere in Africa where there is no perception of what that white lab coat is supposed to mean, and you put it on one of these people there, it's not going to mean anything. It's not like just by virtue of it being a white coat that all of a sudden magically whoever is wearing it feels stronger, feels more confident, feels more authoritative. Of course not. The only reason that it actually has that impact on us personally, on our internal presence, is because an external force, an external society, has attributed this value and these virtues to it. And so you can't just say, well, yeah, I just like dressing this way for myself. I'm a history buff. I like the 1930s. And I dress that way because I like dressing for myself and I'm the only one that matters. Because yes, it comes down to that internal presence, that aspect of it, but there are external reasons of why you like the way that clothing looks. You may like the way that people lived back then. You may like the way that they spoke. You may just like the TV show that's depicting that and think that if you dress that way, then you can emulate those characters in other ways. Now, that's not this conscious thing where I watch, I don't know, Peaky Blinders or Boardwalk Empire and I go, I really like these characters. I really would like to be more like them. They seem like cool guys. So I'm going to go put on a suit like they wear and all of a sudden I'm going to act like them. Of course not. It is not this deliberate conscious thought process, but in the back of your head, you better believe that that is what is going on because we associate our appearance with our ability to execute on certain things. And we know that not only does that impact the way that we perceive ourselves, but it impacts the way that other people see us. And so you can't just decide out of nowhere that, you know what, brown sport coats mean that I'm a beggar. Because that's not a societal perception of what a brown sport coat means compared to, say, like the green jacket of the Masters. Guys who are within that specific golf tribe, they see men wearing a green sport coat, and that has value. And you better believe that somebody who is really into golfing, and he shows up wearing a green sport coat, especially if he's earned it, is going to feel more dominant, more powerful, higher status within that tribe because of what he's wearing. Again, not because it's green, not because there's any value to the clothing at all, other than the value that is given to it based on that tribe or society in general. And so I want you to think about that again as you start thinking about who it is that you dress well for, because they're not mutually exclusive. And that's another one of these things that's really funny is you have different factions within the world that will say, if you dress for other people, then you don't have any integrity, you're not authentic, you're just a poser or a sellout, or you're way too concerned with what other people think and you need to not care what anybody thinks of you. That's a bogus line of thinking. At the same time, you have people who say that if you have any real personal investment in what your appearance is, if you really care, if you put any time into it just because you enjoy it, then you're a fop or a dandy or you're a metrosexual. These are completely antithetical to anything related to masculinity, and that is also a completely bogus statement. And so again, not mutually exclusive. You can dress for other people and you can dress well for yourself. Really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this, especially as a continuation of the comments from the last video. And if you want to learn more about presence and you want to focus more on that, because you know what, let's be honest, for the majority of men in the world, style doesn't matter and it shouldn't. It's actually what I'm going to be speaking on in StyleCon, because style is a means to an end. I had one of you guys left a great comment about this, that dressing well is not the goal, it's the means to the end. And ultimately, what style contributes to is your presence and is your influence, both in your internal, how you view yourself, your external, what you project out to the world. And so it combines with both of those, and there are way more things than just your clothing that are involved with that. And so if you want to learn more about how to develop a presence, you want to practice that, you want to actually improve your life by having a stronger presence, come check out the Odysseus Undertaking. The guys in here are doing great. They're having a lot of fun. And one of the things that I've heard from a few of you guys is that I've got way too much on my plate to be able to tackle this right now. And the thing is, improving your presence should not be a side project. It should not be something that you do in addition to everything else. It's something that you can do in conjunction with all these other goals. And so I have guys, I myself right now am improving my external presence by improving my physical fitness. I'm improving my internal presence by improving my relationships with my family. And so these are worthwhile goals, and then when I take them in the context of how they interact with my presence, and I use all the systems that I've actually set up for you guys within the Odysseus Undertaking, it makes it easier, it gives me more accountability, and it makes it a better process for me overall, and I can actually see the growth that I'm after, as opposed to just constantly feeling like I'm spinning my wheels. And the other guys who are in the undertaking with me, they're experiencing the exact same thing. So if you want to improve your presence, come check us out, come join us. Either way, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and I will catch you guys on the next one.